Hey people, and also good afternoon to the audience watching live from Thailand, and welcome all of you to the information session for the Research Environment Links Program 21-22. So this session is hosted by the National Science and Technology Development Agency in partnership with the British Council and the Program Management Unit for Human Resources, Institutional Development, Research and Innovation, or the PMU-B. My name is Chawit Uttamachai, Science Manager at the British Council here in Thailand, and I'm delighted to be your MC for today as well as the speaker for the later session. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we actually getting started. So please do note that this session will be fully recorded, and we will be sharing with you the recordings later once the session has been closed, and of course share with you the slides as well to you via your email. There's also the Q&A function that if you are not familiar with the Cisco WebEx meeting room, then the Q&A function will be towards your bottom right-hand side of your screen. So if you have any questions, then please feel free to type them away into the Q&A function, and then we can then bring up the questions right at the end of this session so that you can then, we will be asking your questions right there. So before we start, I would like to bring up my colleague. So sorry, apologies on this. So before we start, I'd like to hand over this to the Country Director of British Council in Thailand, Helga Stelmacher, for her openings remarks, please. Helga, if you are in the room, then please feel free to unmute yourself and then you can start. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's fine, Helga.
Yep, and you can see me?
Yep.
Okay, because I can't see myself. Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone, and Sawadika. I would just firstly like to acknowledge and thank the Program Management Unit for Human Resources and Institutional Development, Research and Innovation, PMU-B, who are co-funders for this call with us, the National Science and Technology Development Agency, NSTDA, who are helping us host the event, our audience, yourselves online. As of this morning, we had about 120 applicants registered for this webinar, and to our speakers who will be delivering the webinar from different parts of the British Council. So on behalf of the British Council, I would like to thank you all for attending the event today. I'm sure you'll all be eagerly waiting to hear more details about the Research Environment Links program, which is our new grant call for researchers and academics for this year. How does this fit with the British Council remit? Essentially, we are the international organisation for the UK for cultural relations and educational opportunities. And what that means is that at the heart of everything we do, we need to be developing connections, understanding and trust between the UK and the countries where we work. So in this case, Thailand. And at the very heart of that, we work very often through the medium of partnerships, which is very key to this grant call. In Thailand, I would say a large part of the higher education and science work we do involves bringing people together to share experiences, to learn from each other, and they do that most often through new or through deepening existing partnerships. To date, you may be aware we've had some flagship programs, the Newton Fund, Fame Lab, we had the final just yesterday, and our Higher Education Partnerships Program. We don't have any new calls for Newton Fund that we're delivering this year, but we did want to reiterate that we're very, very much still committed to supporting researchers and academics such as yourselves to be able to collaborate internationally. And going forwards, we have a new global program called Going Global Partnerships, which is our flagship higher education program for the British Council. And the aim of that is very much what I've just described, bringing together universities, colleges, but also policymakers, civil society organizations, and industry partners to collaborate and to work through partnerships. And the Research Environment Links program is very much part of that, as well as you may have heard of our other flagship program called the World Class University Consortium, which has got up and running quite recently. So over to the Research Environment Links program. Obviously, my colleagues are going to tell you much more detail about that, but the main aim is to strengthen capacity of researchers. And whilst this program has been run through the Newton Fund in other countries previously, this is actually the first time we've been able to run this in Thailand, which we're delighted about. And in fact, we are only one of only 5 countries who have been selected to do that this year. So we are doubly delighted to be able to. So in the program today, my colleague Bank and colleagues from British Council Turkey are going to give you some examples of how the program has run previously. My colleagues in the UK will be talking about the overseas development assistance and what that means, as well as our commitment to gender equality. And then very importantly, we have the PMU-B, our Thai partner, coming in to outline their expectations around this program. So in essence, this information session has been designed so that you're fully prepared to make your applications, but do reach out to Bank or any of us in the team following this if you still have questions that are pending. We're very happy to help. And we're very happy that this is the first time we are going to be working with the PMU-B, and we hope that this is just the start of a collaboration which we hope will deepen and widen out over time. So thank you very much to everybody, especially to PMU-B for their support and their steer on the program. Thank you again to the NSTDA for making this webinar possible, and best of luck to you all with your applications. I very much hope to hear about the great work that some of you will end up doing, and perhaps meet some of you in the not too distant future as REL alumni. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helga. So that's the opening remarks. So I will now continue the presentation with the slides on my screen. So what we will be going through today, of course, as Helga has just mentioned, so we will be talking a little bit about the program. So we'll spend some time getting to know about the details of the Research Environment Links, as well as the bigger umbrella program on the GGP, or the Global Partnerships Program. Then I'll hand over to my colleague from Turkey to share his experience from Turkey example, and then we'll pass on to our partner, the PMU-B, Dr. Warinthon Songkhasiri, Assistant Director of PMU-B, to talk more on the Thai priorities areas. And then we'll finish off with more information on the ODA, Official Development Assistance, and the gender equality by my colleague Wendy in the UK. And then right at the end, there will be a Q&A session. So let's start off then. So what is REL, or the Research Environment Ring? Well, this call is a grant that sits within the British Council umbrella program called the Global Partnerships, or GGP. And this is the British Council new global program where we aim to build a stronger, more inclusive and internationally connected higher education systems. And we do see universities and institutions as the key player for social and economic growth. So through the GGP, we support partnerships development, whether it's between universities, researchers, policymakers, and industrial partnerships between the UK and the local countries. So in this case, in Thailand as well. And we do value gender equality and social inclusion. And so promotion of gender equality is represented in all of our activities, including the REL core. And what happens is that with the deeper connections, we can then enhance student outcomes and employability, widening access to tertiary education, as well as creating an enabling environment that supports mutual learning and exchanges of ideas. So ultimately will increase the quality and outcome of research for the local and global challenges. So it is to note that the GGP program, there are 4 key strands here highlighted on these slides, all of which are interconnected but are prioritized differently between different countries. So here in Thailand, we do have an activity under the enabling research strand, which is where the REL sits. So let's go on into further details about what the research environment ring is all about. So for audiences in the UK, or if you are a Thai audience who already have a UK partner and might have heard of the REL program before, and this was because the program REL was previously run through the Newton Fund funded by the UK government, of course. But for this particular call is not under the Newton Fund, but rather funded by the British Council grant through the Global Partnerships program. But both of them do follow a very similar delivery models and details. So what does the grant cover? Well, the REL call provides grant for a joint proposal developed between a Thai and the UK project leads to support capacity strengthening and international collaborative activities that aligns then with the national priorities as well. Again, with the alignment to the GGP objective earlier, we would also seek to have the grant contributing to the changes at institutional level or system levels as well. And it is to note that the REL call is not a grant for research alone. So let's say if you are looking for grant to do, for example, wet labs, then this call will not be for you. Again, we are giving this grant for capacity building and international collaborative activities. And because we also do value how the capacity that has been built from the project and the collaboration can persist even after the project has been finished, sustainability also comes into play when you are applying for this call, and we are looking for how your projects will support further activity even the project has been finished. So this is a list of what the activities that the program can fund. So this is based on the guideline itself. If you haven't read them, this is from the guideline, as well as some previous examples in other countries that run this call in the past. So when we talk about capacity building or capacity strengthening, the most common idea, of course, is to organize a training, and whether it's for researchers or administrators. And the trainings could revolve around knowledge transfer of certain research-specific skills and processes, or a more cross-cutting skills like communications, equality, diversity, and inclusion in research to commercialization of research. We also do permit other activities like organizing policy dialogues with policymakers, or public engagement activities to engage with the media that then results in publications or even conferences. It may also be useful to have part of the grant to support a needs analysis to ensure that your program is well informed and the design has some prior background to the training itself. But please note, once again, it is not for you to research to do an entirely new concept. So remember, it is a grant for capacity strengthening, not research itself. And it is more on how your proposal will then respond to the capacity gap that is identified and how it is appropriate for the context and the type of expertise that you have within your project team. It is up to you as the applicant to make sure that there is a strong case for how relevant the proposed activity is. And one activity proposed in one project can be very relevant, but might not be the same for another project. So make sure you clarify on this when you are applying. So ideally, what we are looking for through the program is that the outcomes should result in an enhance of research and innovation capacity, maybe an influencing or informing policies or research strategies, and of course, benefits to the local country as the main objective. So in this case, Thailand will be the main objectives here. So now let's look on to how the local funders come into play. If you're not familiar with the Newton Fund, all countries that run this REL program, Thailand included, we do have a local funder to help to steer so that the program then aligns with the national priorities and also provide contribution to the project as well. Here in Thailand, we work again with the Program Management Unit for Human Resource and Institutional Development, Research and Innovation, or PMU-B for short, which they come up with 2 priority areas that you'll be hearing more later on, but then these are the leaders in innovation policy and innovative monitoring and evaluation for social science, humanities, and arts research. And the grant itself, we are providing a maximum of £50,000 per each project, of which the grant will be fully transferred to the UK institution to run a one-year project starting earlier next year. If the project lead wishes to transfer part of the grant from the UK universities to Thailand, then this is of course fine to do so, depending on your local institution policies and if you do need to have any collaborative agreement between the two institutions. I do want to stress that because of the current pandemic, we highly ask you to have a think and design creatively on how you can deliver the programs. And that's with the contingency that we may not be able to go to the UK, or the UK people might not be able to come to Thailand even in next year. So please do have this conversation well in advance with your partner. So just to share you some experience, that last year we were running a different call and we were quite optimistic and hopeful that things would then be returned, of which it doesn't seem to be the case last year. So there were quite a lot of underspending, and then that affects the project delivery. So yeah, make sure you do have this conversation with your partner when you are applying. And some creative ideas to use the grant, for example, to have maybe a prize for the training participants to do some further local activities. Maybe you could put more resources into more data collection so that you can make a better informed decision for your capacity strengthening activities as well. On the other hand, if you do plan to run all activities in online platform, then just to flag to you that this can take a lot of additional resources that you might not have think of, and that includes a lot of time and human resource to test out the connections, exploring different meeting functions to make sure that you fully understand them and make sure people are engaged with your activities. Running an online meeting can be quite easy to do. And I'm sure a lot of you might have been through a phase where you have a full day 9 to 5 online meeting during lockdown. I myself have been through that. So, but to run an online training or even dialogues, then this can take up more resources to make sure people actually turn up, whether it's with or without camera on, and to keep them engaged can be very engaging. So make sure you do discuss this with your partner. So how do you apply for the call? Well, the first thing that you need to go through the guideline is, of course, the eligibility criteria. So in order to apply for the call, we will need at least one project lead from Thai university or institutions and one lead from the UK university. And of course, if you do have more than one, then this is fine to do so, but they will be applying as an associated partner, not the project leads themselves. We also have a set criteria that we allow only one application per one local institution as well. So please do try your best to make sure that your application represents the interest of your universities and the strengths of the universities. Other than that, if you want to have other partners, for example, not a university partner, then we do permit having charities, NGOs, or for-profit partners as well. But just to note that for-profit organizations are only eligible to claim for their travel costs and not staff costs. So in order to have these as partners, what we will need is that you all must submit supporting documents in the form of supporting letters. But because of the pandemic, we do understand it can be difficult and challenging for you to obtain a signed letter. So in this case, submitting a formal email from the head of department or the dean or the university president is also feasible and eligible. And we would highly encourage you to read the full eligibility criteria of the guideline on page 5 and then the checklist on page 25. So make sure you look at those very carefully when you are applying. And this is probably the most important part when you are applying for this call. If you do pass the eligibility criteria, your applications will then go through a series of panel selection, which will give you a score as per the table here. Please note that the top 3 criteria are marked as either a yes or a no. So if your application is marked as a no in any of these criteria, then this will be deemed as unfundable and there will be no scoring. So your application will be removed from the consideration lists. And a lot of researchers do place great emphasis on the science behind their proposal, but do make sure you spend enough time to understand these criteria carefully as well. And I'm sure many research projects will create an impact, but make sure you know how to clearly articulate this in your proposal. And we stress that applications really need to explain the context and the capacity challenge that the project aims to address here in Thailand very carefully. You as an applicant should not assume and take for granted that panels will fully understand the local context here in Thailand. And even if the panel do have a pre-existing knowledge of what is happening in the Thailand, they can only assess what is written in the applications form only, and they are not allowed to use any pre-existing information to make any sort of assumptions on the context. So make sure this is clearly articulated in your proposal and make sure that it is presented in plain English and avoid technical jargons. So gender statement is not just about having for example, 3 females and 3 males in your group and that your university have a policy to support diversity. That's not what we're looking for in the gender statement. But what we are looking for more is how you as the project lead perceive on how your project and its outcome can have an impact on gender equality. This doesn't mean that your project will need to be fully all about gender equality, but we are looking for how you might have considered this on the impact of your projects. For example, you might do a risk assessment when you are aware that that might be a risk to undermine gender equality from your research, and that you can have a mitigation measures that are planned in advance. And finally, if your application passes the 3 first criteria, then this will go through the scoring, which your application will be scored a maximum of 60 scores based on the 3 criteria here. So quality and relevance, proposal and methodology, and sustainabilities. And I would like to advise, if you want to have a look, then this will be right at the last page of the guideline for the course. So make sure you understand how these 60 scores are given. And in terms of the budget planning for this call, these are some of the eligible costs that can be funded from the grant. So it's staff resources, human resources for staff in the project, expertise costs if you do need to get an external expertise to support with your project, operational costs, for example, travel costs, visa costs, meetings, and consumable in case where you're organizing a training and will need to purchase consumable as part of your training, then this is of course allowed to do so. Communications costs will then include, let's say, purchasing licenses for different platforms in order for you to run your events. Again, there are other ineligible costs as well that you can go through with them in the guidelines. So make sure you check what are eligible and what are not eligible. So I think that's all the information about the call that I can share with you. And this slide is basically what has been done in the past in Vietnam. Some example is that in the previous Vietnam area call, they have deployed Internet of Things in the agriculture context and in city management context. So what they did was that they, at the start of the program, they have a phase where they do needs analysis and then to map the activities. So after all the information has been collected and needs has been analyzed, then they would go through the content design and then actually delivering them in the forms of workshops and conferences. Right at the end, then they would finish up with a content development in the form of electronic copy, and then to develop a roadmap for future activities. So this is just one example of what happened in Vietnam, but I'll pass on this to my colleague Erhan from Turkey, who will be able to share with you the recent examples in Turkey. So I'll stop sharing my slides for now, and I'll hand over to you, Erhan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bank, and thank you for the opportunity. Hello, everyone again. Let me introduce myself. My name is Erhan Yavaş. I am the Needham Fund Manager in Turkey on behalf of the British Council. and I'm here to share the experience of the Turkey team in Research Environment Links program. This is the fourth year we've been implementing this program. We started in 2018, and overall in recent years we supported 16 projects. Actually, this is a very good opportunity to focus on strengthening the institutional capacity with sustainability impact on the projects. It is a little bit different than the other research and development projects because it really aims a wider impact area. Please keep in mind that increasing or strengthening the capacity in your institution has a long-lasting effect, and through these projects, you will reach many other fellow researchers in your institutions, in your area, in your research area, and through them, you will have a long-lasting impact. So I'll try to keep it very clear and short. I'll give you some examples from the previous year's projects. What type of projects were supported in last year's programs? Actually, it was a very wide area. We supported projects from health to environment, building, highly performing buildings, to textile research. But the focus was again not the research itself, but transferring the know-how through webinars, through training opportunities, through some other meetings that brings together the researchers with capacity in that field. One of the examples was between Loughborough University and Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University in Turkey. They focused on sustaining, the name of the project was Sustaining Inclusive Design Collaboration through co-design platforms. Mostly the names of the, or the titles of the projects do not directly reflect the the ingredients of the projects. In this project, they partnered with NGOs. They were trying to create a better city design, a better design capacity for blind people, and they prepared a wonderful project report. And in their university, this will be a reference project for the future collaborations, for the future research in this field. And they organized two wonderful, very large webinars, and as side projects, they organized the learning, little learning opportunities in this field, and they prepared a project bazaar for all the sub projects in this opportunity. Another very good example was between the University of Nottingham and Koç University. Koç University is a very prestigious university in Turkey. Again, they are focusing on different fields, but the medicine and health sciences are one of their expertise areas. And their project title was Training Health Researchers by Experience Sharing, which directly aims the heart of this opportunity to research environment links. It is they focused on the training of midwives in Turkey, which is a really priority area in health sciences for Turkey, and they focused on creating online learning opportunities. They developed an online learning syllabus, and through their know-how sharing with the University of Nottingham, they created a wonderful new syllabus to implement in the future training opportunities of midwives. Two other examples. One was between the University of Essex and the Istanbul Şehir University. They focused on migration and social policies in Turkey and the UK. It was a comparative study, but as a result of that project, they use the Research Environment Links program opportunity to establish a new social policy center in Turkey, in Marmara University, in a different university. They started a new social policy study center, and they will be supporting more and more projects in this field. Another similar example was between the University of Plymouth. Please forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. University of Plymouth and Çankaya University from Turkey. They again focused in a different area in high performance buildings, and they also established a center, a research center through this project. For this project, the high performance buildings project, the Research Environment Links grant support was the only support for them to create that research center, and they received all the regulations and all the passes from the Higher Education Council of Turkey. So this will be another good center to support future opportunities in high performance buildings area. As you can see, it is yes. In all countries, we have priority areas, we have focus areas, but you are the researchers and you will be writing that project to focusing on those priority areas. Please feel free to suggest your own ideas, own projects focusing on those priority areas. My last word, so yet again, I will focus on the difference of this Research Environment Links project. This is a wonderful opportunity to create long-lasting impacts through institutional capacity strengthening. Please use it, and we'll be happy to see your applications. Thank you. Thank you, Bank, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Han, for your insights here. I think it's been quite useful for people to know what to expect for the program. So again, if you do have any questions about the program itself, or even want to know further about some details, what's happening in different countries, then do please feel free to reach out to me, and then I can pass along for further conversation with my colleagues here in Han too. So I think that's it about the first part for this webinar on the details of research environment links. Now we'll go on to the next part, which is to understand the Thai priorities in the context of capacity strengthening. So for this session, I'd like to invite the representative of the PMU-B, Dr. Warinthorn Songkhasiri, Assistant Director, for your sessions, please.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank British Council for partnering with us, PMU-B here, and also would like to thank NSTDA for organizing everything from now and so on. I would like to give you the overview of PMU-B and how we select the national priority area for this research environmental link programs here. PMU-B is Program Management Unit for Human Resources and Institutional Development Research and Innovation. B is not in the name, but it stands for brain power. So we are also for the lookout for capacity building, which is in line with British Council programs. After the transformation of our higher education science research and innovation system in 2019, we combined several organizations. For example, the Ministry of Science and Technology, the Office of the Higher Education Commission, National Research Council of Thailand, Thailand Research Fund, to become one entity, Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation here. With the transformation, we have 4 national strategic platforms here. So the first platform is Human Resources and Knowledge Institutions Development. The second one is RDI, Research Development and Innovation for Grand Challenges. The third one is RDI for Competitiveness. The fourth one is RDI for area-based development and inclusiveness. With the 4 strategic platforms, we divided into sub-program, into programs here. We have 16 programs. For example, in platform 1, human resource and knowledge institutions development, you can see program 1 is the national brain power and talent mobility. Program 2 is upskill and reskill workforce for EEC. Program 3 is lifelong learning. 4 is AI for all. 5 is frontier research and blue sky research. 6 is big science and research infrastructure. And you can see the detail of each platform on this slide. And program 16, the last one, is to reinvent university and research system, or to transform, restructure university as the higher education institutes and the research national research centers here. So I would like for you to see the structure of our higher education science research and innovation system here. Under the cabinet on top, we have 3 categories of organizations or institutes. The first category is responsible for policy setting up, budget funding allocation, setting up rules and regulation, and also providing incentives for RDI, research development and innovation. The second set of organization is the funding agencies and program management units, such as PMU, Program Management Unit, we here or us here. So at this level, there are 7 organizations. So we have PMU-A, responsible for area-based research and development and innovation. B is for brain power or human resource and infrastructure at the national level. And C is for competitiveness. And another 4 funding agencies are the existing funding agency, for example, National Research Council of Thailand. And the last category at the bottom is the implementing entities, such as universities and also national research institutes here. This slide will show you the very short summary of our role and responsibilities here. For example, the new PMU-A, B, C. For us, PMU-B, we are responsible for brain power and human resource development, capacity building, research infrastructure, frontier research, and also international collaboration. So who we are? We, along with the other 2 PMUs, was established in November 2019, only 2 years here. We are under the Office of National Higher Education Science Research and Innovation Policy Council, or NEXPO, also OWCH in Thai, under the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation. We received the funding budget that we have to open calls under those programs that I mentioned earlier for the fiscal year of 2020 at 22.7 million euro. And for this fiscal year, 2021, at 36.9 million euros. And we are responsible for these 6, let's say 6+2 program. So the first 6 in the rectangular box here is under strategic platform 1. So you can see program 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. And program 16 is the Global Partnership Fund, along with 17, which exists after the COVID-19 situation for the frontier research. Sorry, our internet access has a little bit of problem due to the weather here. So I think I can. Okay. So based upon our experience for the 2 years funding under these programs, if we focus on international collaboration, our priorities are strengthening early career researcher capabilities, strengthening existing international networks, promoting institutional linkage, promoting collaboration on frontier research and research with high impact, and promoting the use of large research infrastructures which do not exist in Thailand. So these are the priorities that we are focusing on. I think you already heard from Mr. Tawit already about the priority area that we would like to focus on. It's a little bit different from other countries based upon our experience from reading through the proposal and every research projects. We think that the national needs or gaps right now is on the innovation policy, which we already have, but we would like to establish the international collaboration with UK on this topic, along with the monitoring and evaluation of social science, humanities, and arts research here. So we select the two priority areas. The first one is leaders in innovation policy. And the second area is innovative monitoring and evaluation of social science, humanities, and arts research. So you can read the detail of each area on page 20 of the guideline. I believe that the name, the title of the priority area might sound difficult for you, but I think we would like to set up the collaboration with our UK partner on this topic, and it will lead to strengthening our research and innovation landscape of Thailand here. So that's all for PMU-B here. So I would like to thank you everyone again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Warinthorn Songkhasil, Assistant Director to the PMU-B. Okay, so I think that's quite a lot of information about what we are looking for here at for the applications here in Thailand. So now I think we can find out further information, of course, from the guideline as well, right? So other than the Thai priority areas, the other two priority areas that I've mentioned are equally important are the official development assistance and the gender equality statement. So here for this session, I'm passing over to my colleagues in the UK. So this is Wendy Waring to discuss more on ODA and gender equality. So over to you, Wendy.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's not on full screen though.
Okay, hold on, let me try again. Sorry. Can you see it now?
Not yet, Wendy.
Sorry. Is that me now?
so it's on the screen now. If you want to press the full screen mode from the big. Yep. So yeah, this looks fine now. Thanks, Wendy.
We're good to go. Okay.
Over to you.
Apologies, everyone. Sorry. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this information session. And thank you to colleagues in PMU-B for collaborating with us on this venture. My name is Wendy Waring. I am the Global Programme Lead for Science, so I work very closely with colleagues in Thailand, colleagues in Turkey, colleagues globally, to deliver the science portfolio of work that we currently have for the British Council. So I've been asked to speak very briefly about ODA and about gender statements. So, official development assistance. I'm sure you all are familiar with the term, but anyway, I thought it was useful to put the slide up here and just remind ourselves really what official development assistance is. And really it is that it's a funding pot that the UK government and governments globally make a commitment to provide and use that money to help with overseas development. And in the UK, the overseas development funding has actually, I'm sure you've heard the sort of press and the coverage around this. Unfortunately, the amount of funding that we have available through ODA has reduced as a result of a lot of things, Brexit, COVID, and the amount of funding has reduced slightly. But the UK government is still committed to providing 0.5% towards official development assistance. So we still have that funding coming through. And I think the important thing to remember about all of the ODA funding that we have work flowing through ourselves is that it is recorded and publicly available. And as such, we are accountable for that funding. I think when you're thinking about your project plans and what it is you would like to collaborate on, I think it's really important that you think about the credibility of what it is you're wanting to do and the importance of it being consistent with best practice. As with everything, credibility really is important whenever we are assessing the ODA-ness of the project that you're delivering. Thinking about the link to government and I guess the importance of ODA spending, we do have a legal responsibility around the ODA funding. And as Bank mentioned at the beginning, the way that money flows slightly differently on the REL programme to what it would have been on the likes of the Newton programme. But essentially the FCDO, so the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, formerly the FCO, we are receiving a pot of funding from the Foreign Office, which is labelled as ODA. So that ODA money means that we are accountable for ensuring we deliver. I've put in value for money here. We have to ensure that we are able to stand over any of the funding that we, I guess, sign up to delivering. And if we're working on Thai projects or projects in Turkey or wherever it is where we're working, we have to be able to, I guess, demonstrate that money is being used for correct purposes. And there is a lot of scrutiny around ODA spending in the UK and in other countries. The National Audit Office are always looking for value for money and making sure that the money is being spent appropriately. And we also have this Independent Commission for Aid Impact. And Bank and Erhan and other colleagues will be very familiar with this because ICAI did actually sort of undertake a review of the Newton programme that we all work on, and that can be really in-depth, and you really have to be able to demonstrate to ICAI that the money being spent is being spent for the correct purpose. I just put together some of these press clippings are a little bit old, but we have had sort of investigations into why money is being used on certain things. And as you can see, some of the tabloid press in the UK, obviously they focus on, you know, Roman statues, fracking, you know, anything that obviously is headline making, they will pull up on. But I think when you're thinking of your project plans and what you're hoping to collaborate on, you know, whatever it's training or whatever the topic area is, that you do make sure that you think about the ODA-ness of the project, and make sure that it would stand up to scrutiny if the National Audit Office look at it, or if ITI, you know, asked to review a particular project. And they can do that at any time, at any point. You know, they can just come in and say, we want to review X project in Thailand, and we would have to be able to provide the information on that. Thinking about your sort of collaboration and what it is you'd be looking to work with UK institutions on. I've put up a number of things here just to sort of give you an idea of what we're looking for. I mean, Bank did mention the importance of having your institutional backing. I mean, that's something obviously we would expect as a given before you would start to apply for an REL project, and that you do have that backing of your institution. Thinking about, you know, the strengths of each partner and the mutuality of the engagement, because I think, as with a lot of these projects, everything is about mutuality, and it's about working together, and it's about partnership, and it's, you know, it's for the greater good of both Thailand and the UK. So I think that for me is a really core fundamental part of what any project would be about, that you would be thinking about the mutual benefit, both in Thailand and in the UK. And also thinking about the SDGs. I mean, we're always hearing about SDGs and the importance of SDGs, and we are really pushing that as part of our project proposals now, that every project must think about what SDGs your project is relating to. And I just put this slide up. I'm sure you all know what the SDGs are, but these are the aspirational goals that were drawn up in 2015. A lot of the projects that we see coming through focus on good health, well-being, but as you can see, you know, there's a wealth of them here that you can align your project to. And again, when you're thinking of writing your project proposal, do think about the SDGs and think about where, you know, which one your project would relate to. When you're thinking about ODA eligibility, I pulled together some core questions here that I think will really help you channel what it is you're doing and focus your project proposal. I'm not going to read through all of these, but I'm sure Bank will make these slides available after the session. But, you know, thinking about, you know, is what you're doing credible? Is there evidence that will back up the need of what you're doing? Impact is really important. What would the impact of your project be, and who will benefit? What does my project or activity contribute to the SDGs? Reduction in poverty, success. So all of those things, I'm sure you're all very familiar with writing project proposals, but think about these sorts of questions whenever you're pulling together your proposal, and how this then links back to ODA eligibility. Because again, as Bank said, when we are assessing projects, we will be looking at that ODA eligibility criteria, and it is a simple yes or no. So if you do not have the ODA-ness in your project, then it will not pass forward to the next stage of the process. And just thinking about the application process, again, I think Bank has pretty much talked about this, but when the call opens, you know, we will then run eligibility checks. And again, these will focus on ODA and the gender equality statement. So it's really important that you think about both aspects of this if you want your project to get through to the next stage. And then the ODA relevance comes up again whenever we're looking at we convene a group of reviewers and panelists who will look at the project. And again, they will look at the ODA relevance of your proposal. And the reason I'm mentioning that is it is important to remember that it's not just us as British Council colleagues who will be looking at this, but we actually will bring in expert reviewers who will be looking at different aspects of the project. And I think, again, that goes back to the credibility of the work that we're doing and the need for us to have a robust process in place so that if we are asked by ICAI or the audit office how we assess projects, we have a very clear line, and we can show that process of assurance and making sure that we've really thought through how we're ranking projects, how we're approving projects, and we can have that stand up to any level of scrutiny. I've put in some links here that you can have a look at. It is worth going to the OECD website, where you will get definition of what ODA actually is, and another one here on the OECD website, what is ODA. So do have a look at those, have a read of them. I mean, a lot of ODA, it can be, I guess, a little bit of a grey area sometimes, but again, it comes back to we have panels, we have experts, we have people who will decide on whether the ODA-ness of a project is valid, and that will go through that process. That was all I was going to say about ODA. Just moving on quickly to gender equality statements. This has become a really important part of all of our applications in the British Council, and I'm sure it's equally important for you and your institutions. We now have an International Development Gender Equality Act in the UK. It's not particularly new, it was in 2014, but I think the focus is really becoming much more to the fore on making sure we think about gender inequalities whenever we're delivering projects like REL, but any of the work that we do, again, across the British Council. And I think, again, as was someone mentioned earlier, it's not just about making sure you've got, 2 male, 2 female, and a sort of gender balance across your project in terms of participants, but I think it's really thinking about the focus of the project, thinking about the outcomes and the outputs, thinking about the beneficiaries. So it's that broader stroke across the programme, and it's not necessarily that your project has to be a gender-specific project, but it is that you do need to make sure that you're addressing the 5 criteria that we're going to show now. So there are 5 areas that you do need to think about whenever you're pulling together your proposal. Again, I'm not going to read these through. You can read them for yourselves. But I think the important thing is that you really take a step back whenever you're writing your project proposal and think about the gender aspect. Think about how you would build that into your project proposal. Thinking about the sort of area of focus. If it's a training opportunity that you're looking at, again, gender balance within that would be really important to make sure you're giving everyone an opportunity to be involved. And thinking about your outcomes and outputs, thinking about how you will measure that. And again, not all of the data is always readily available, but I think where possible, bear in mind these 5 criteria that we will be looking at whenever we're assessing your proposal. When you're writing a gender statement, again, you've got the sort of inception stage, the ideas stage, thinking about your proposal, pulling together whatever the activities are, and then you've got the post-delivery, your dissemination and reporting, and then ultimately the impact. So these are just some questions again that we put together. Have you considered gender in your initial, sort of core idea of what it is that you're going to do? Are you using gender sensitive language? I mean, again, something quite simple, but think about incorporating that into your program. How are you going to monitor gender equality and inequality? So lots of things here sort of to kind of get the thought processes going and really get you to think about the gender equality aspect. And again, this is important because obviously it goes back to that sort of assessment stage that, the gender statement has to be correct and suitable, otherwise you will not pass to the next stage of the process. And I think some of the common pitfalls, I mean, we've some experience on doing this now. We had an NFIS call through the Newton Fund programme, which is the Newton Fund Impact Scheme, where we applied the gender statement requirement. And I think where a lot of projects didn't pass was they just simply didn't complete or respond to all 5 of the criteria. So I think it's really important to have that in your mind when you're writing your proposal. What are those 5 criteria? Have I responded to them? Have I addressed them? And I think the other pitfall here that I will mention is the generalistic nature of it, where I think some project proposals just come in with, we have considered gender as an area, and that's it. We need something more than a very bland and general statement. So again, do think about not making it too generalistic, making it appropriate for the project. And I think the other thing I would say is it's quite easy to see when something has been cut and pasted in and it's not necessarily, relevant to the actual project proposal that you're putting forward. So do spend time, I think, really considering what it is your project is focusing on, but do think about that gender aspect as well. And I think some of the tips that we would give for writing a gender equality statement is, start writing early. Well, I know that the call is already open and that you probably, you have to have applied, I think, by the 8th of October. I hope I've got that right. But, do think about gender issues in your field. Think about the roles and responsibilities of people involved in the project, both in Thailand and in the UK. Think about the implications of the work. Think about the stakeholders involved. Think about the accessibility of the outputs to different genders. So lots of questions there, I think, to give you food for thought and really get you thinking about EDI. And the other thing I would say is, do speak to other people who may have experience of writing gender statements or who can give you a little bit of support in pulling that together. Again, this just goes back to what I said about process. I'm not going to repeat myself again, but when we are assessing applications, it is that yes, no. So it is really, as fundamental as that. If the project doesn't address that gender criterion, then I'm afraid it will be a no in terms of moving on to the next stage. And again, just some further links. I mean, there's a lot of information here on places that you can go to. There's so much stuff out there now on EDI and gender, but these are some of the, I think, some really good ones. The UKRI site in particular is really useful if you want to have a look at that when thinking about your EDI statement for your proposal. And that's it, Bank.
Thank you very much, Wendy. That again, a lot of information on ODA and gender here. So of course, if anyone doesn't catch any details on ODA or gender, then of course you are welcome to rewatch this recording, or slides will later be shared with you after today's session as well. Okay. So I think that's really it for the program that we have for you today. I will go on to some Q&As in case if you do have any questions, then please feel free to type in to the Q&A chat box, and then we will be looking and reading them as we go along in the Q&A. Okay, thank you very much, NSTDA team, for your quick help on this. So we do have one question. So I'm currently at the UK as a visiting researcher with a Khon Kaen University grant for 1 year. I'm interested to apply, and I'm not sure if I'm eligible to apply or not. And right now I'm working at UCL, and the proposal will be involved with this. So yes, in this case, if you are currently in the UK as I would say a visiting researcher, it really depends on whether you are applying to represent the UK side or the Thai side. If you are applying to represent the UK side, ideally what we would expect the PI, the project lead, is to be a permanent employee of that institution. So yeah, if you are representing UCL, then you need to be a permanent employee there. That's fine. If you are for example, if you go to the UK to UCL as a visiting researchers and not considered as a permanent staff, then I would recommend you to apply as a representative for Khon Kaen University here instead. But do make sure that when the project has been started, you will be there to actually deliver the projects. Okay, Kap, I think we can look at the next question. Okay, 2 questions here in Kun Chawit's side. It says that £50,000 funding will be transferred to the UK. What does this mean? So in this case, just to reiterate, so the grant for this call the maximum grant that you can request it is a maximum of £50,000. And this is supposed to cover both expenses in the Thailand together. But what will happen when we are transferring the grant is that the whole pot of money will go to the UK directly and not to Thailand. And that's because of the money will be transferred from British Council to the UK and to the UK universities. So in this case, if there are any expenses that will need to happen in Thailand, the UK university who got the grant will need to transfer part of that to Thai universities. So yeah, no budget will be transferred from British Council in Thailand to Thai universities. So it has to go the other way around. Dr. Warinthorn, PMU-B mentioned two thematic priority areas, policy and leaders. I guess the continuation part of that question is, does this mean that the project will need the topic of the project to be applied for this funding have to be related only to one of the two themes mentioned? Okay,
yes. So you can select one area and then apply to specific area, the project that you are interested in. So for example, the first one is leaders in innovation policy. It's focus or emphasize on innovation policy. So you can do capacity strengthening for the Thai stakeholders, including policymakers or university lecturers or researchers at any levels, so on. Sharing the experience with UK partners and Thai partners here, or you can select the monitoring and evaluation of social science, humanity, and arts here in this case.
Thank you very much, Kap. Just looking at the Q&A sidebar. So is there a set quota on the number of REL granted? So at this stage, we are looking to fund 2 projects, one for each of the priority area. But again, this really depends on the, so at the moment, it's been confirmed to have two funded projects. Depending on the amount requested, we may be able to look to explore more, but this is not confirmed for the third project. Okay, can one organization be included as a partner into separate application? So as I've mentioned here, one of our criteria here states that we are accepting one application per one organization only. So this will mean that you won't be eligible to apply. So let's say if for example, Mahidol University, then we are only accepting one application from Mahidol. So you as an applicant would need to coordinate at a university level which application will go through to represent Mahidol University. But I think this will be slightly different in the case where the UK universities, they are applying for different REL countries. So as Helga mentioned in the earlier part of today, there are 5 countries running REL. So this will be different when you're looking at the UK university's perspective, and I'm not sure which side are we looking at based on the Q&A here. So yeah, if you are not sure and you represent the UK universities, it may be good to contact us for further information or clarifications. Next question, could one consortium consist of one partner from one UK and 2 Thai universities? Yes, this is absolutely fine. The mandatory requirement is that we need at least one from UK and one from Thailand. If you have more from either countries, that's fine. But again, if you have more partners included in your applications, you need to make sure that you also submit a supporting letter from that particular partner as well.
And there is some in Q&A from the question from Q&A box, but I didn't bring in on the.
Sure, let me just quickly read through all of them.
Please read from the Q&A box. Thank you.
Okay, so next question regard to Thai priority area. So we have one question maybe for PMU-B. So does this mean that the project related to collaboration on strengthening STEM research, such as wet lab tech transfer, won't be considered?
For this call.
Okay, Next question. How will the PMU-B co-funding scheme, will there be additional funding? Ajahn, would you like me to take this question? Okay, so yeah, in this case, the PMU-B, they are co-funding by at least at first instance, we'll be providing the steering of the directions to make sure it aligns, because British Council, we do not know what the national priority area for Thailand is. So that's where PMU-B comes in. In terms of the financial contribution, the 50K comes directly from the UK pot of money. But what the PMU-B will be supporting is in terms of in-kind contribution that would take place later once your project have been funded. And that would include like dissemination events taking part later on in your project. Okay, so next question, which side has to submit the proposal? So this is an online system, and in the application form itself, we include both one question, who is the Thai partner and who is the UK partner. So anyone who submit is the same, but make sure that in the application, you have attachment and confirmation of both sides in one application. It doesn't make any difference which side press the submit button. Next question, you kindly mentioned one application per one institute. Per one institute, will this be at university, faculty, or this department level? At the present, we are looking to fund one application per one university. Next question, sorry, I'm trying to rush this just because the timing is running out. If the project is based on gender equity and not really on gender equality, is this eligible to apply? So, and maybe I can give some insights on here, but if the PMU-B would like to add on, that's completely fine. So again, it really depends on how you're telling your story and how this will relate to the priority area. So if this relates to gender equity, but not relevant to the two priority areas, then again, that will not be fundable. So make sure it relates back to what we are looking for the local country. Can you give examples of measurable impacts that are highly prioritized for the funds? Give examples, measurable impacts. Wendy, are you still in the call? Maybe I can ask you for this question if that's okay with you.
Yes, thanks. Sorry, I'm still here.
Yes,
sorry, could you read the question again? Sure.
We have one question asking, can you give some examples of the measurable impacts that are prioritized by the fund?
Oh my goodness. That's quite a hard question. I think that's one we'll take that away and maybe come back on that one with the slides. We can send something out on that.
Sure.
If that's okay.
I think, my understanding is that the word impact is, it's quite broad and it really depends on the field of the projects as well. So it depends on what your proposal is all about. So of course, we'll get back to you for further resources when we send out the slides. I only have time for one more question. Follow up to the PMU-B question. If my project is about building research capacity in the medical device development, will this not fit the scope then? Could you please also okay, so it was just, okay, so yep. So if it's a project related to medical device development, will this fit or will it not fit the scope of the funding?
I would like to add to that. I think if you can, it's like Mr. Schmidt already said that you have to adjust your proposal to fit the leaders in innovation policy. It could be innovation. You could have a platform for medical device development, but for innovation policy in the medical device area, I think you can say that you will develop this platform, but you have the example for the medical device industry like that. I think it would be fit because we would like to focus on innovation platform on policy, both STI and then SHA here. Or you can have the medical device platform that look into the aspect of social science, humanities, so on.
Thank you very much. And I think that's all the time we have left. So of course, we will be sharing the Q&A along with the recording and the slides to you later once our event has been closed. So do watch out for that. And if you do have any other specific questions, then do please feel free to contact us. I myself am available to respond to any queries related to the program. But if it's anything specific to the PMU-B, then of course I'll be able to contact our colleagues from PMU-B for their insights as well. So yep. So maybe just some. Let me quickly. Okay, sure. So I think that's really it from me. So thank you very much once again for the three speakers today for your insights and information on the call, and of course to all the audience here attending today. And we hope the session has been useful to you so that you are ready to apply for your applications. And if there are any questions that we haven't answered, do look out for the Q&A and FAQs later that we'll be sending out. Once again, I'd like to thank our colleague, the partner, the PMU-B, for the great contribution to make sure this program is running this year, despite our first year of official collaboration. So thank you very much, PMU-B. And of course, the NSTDA for the long-standing partnership and collaboration and their interest to hold this and make sure this event is a success. So thanks again, NSTDA team, for your great support here today as well. I'm Shawit Uttamachai from British Council. I'm signing off. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a great evening. See you and take care.